Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So, spoiler alert for the first two videos. If you haven't seen them, go watch them first. We've seen one loss, one draw, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you how to win a chess game. This is called the King's Indian Defense. This little setup I've got going over here where we fianchetto the bishop, we put the knight here. I like to play it when I have no idea what else to do, and it's usually not terrible. I'm going to go after his center pawn with my side pawn because center pawns are typically more powerful than side pawns. And I might even be able to get my knight developed in the process. I decided to go back to desktop view. If anybody liked the mobile phone view more, feel free to comment about it, but it seems easier to edit the desktop view, and it seems like the desktop view video got more views. What's everybody's rating that's watching? Can you leave that down in the comments? So what we've got going on here, his bishop's under a little bit of pressure from the knight. I think I would trade this knight for this bishop if he lets me. Now that's kind of interesting. What he wants here is he wants to take the knight. I think I would rather have two bishops than two knights, especially with him missing a center pawn. I could take his knight and let him take with the queen, but it doesn't seem better to me to do that than to do something to get my bishop developed. Which is what I will do. This pawn is going to be weak. This queen is in line with my bishop. Once this bishop goes here, this knight is weak, and this pawn is in the line of the bishop. I'm really not minding my position here. I think I'm liking it. Okay, we'll take this. We get tempo on the queen. This pawn's weak. That's interesting. So he's putting a little pressure on this pawn. He's putting a little pressure on this pawn. For the time being, they're both defended. He's also defending that pawn. I think I will go ahead and just build a little pawn chain. Block his queen out. Control a couple more little squares. It's nothing crazy, but it's a start. I think I'll bring my queen up to the light squares, and there's a few reasons I'm thinking of doing this. One is I can get my queen over where it can work with the bishop to take this pawn and potentially win a rook. It also connects my rooks. I'm not afraid of him sacking that rook on that pawn. I think I'd rather go after this pawn. He can mess up his pawn structure. Ooh. Always blunder check. That's a yikes. I think I'll take this open file with my rook here. It's just a small improving move. I don't see anything better for the time being. Interesting. I could put this bishop here, but I think his most likely course of action, if I do that, is to take my bishop, which means I no longer have a pair of bishops when he doesn't. So it feels like I've lost some advantage there, but I also get to put a rook here, which puts me one step closer to getting doubled rooks on my only semi-open file. If I don't do that, I have to move the queen somewhere. I kind of want to take this pawn. If I go queen here, I add pressure to the bishop. I add pressure to this pawn, and it messes up his ability to develop this knight. I think we'll look at the post-game analysis. I'm guessing this is the best move here. That's all chess is, right? Find one best move after another. That does block my ideas pretty effectively, though. If I kick this bishop, it pretty much has to run away somewhere with it. And then I can just push this pawn farther. I don't hate the idea of taking a little more space on the board here. Obviously, this will almost certainly be my next move. Pawn b5. But let's see what he does. He really badly needs to get his knight out and get castled, because these two pieces in the corner are not doing anything right now in this game. He's really in a world of trouble, though. I'll have to keep an eye out on sacking this bishop on f3. That may be a move, potentially. I have to either move the queen or counter-threaten his queen, which doesn't work, because after he takes my queen, he has an attack on my bishop. So the queen's got to go somewhere here. This is the only square it can go to that defends this pawn, which will be hanging. So I'm going to go ahead and move it there, and we'll see what he does here. He can trade queens, and if he does, the question is which pawn is it better to take with? If I take with the D pawn, I'm giving him an open file, and I'm losing pawns in the center. If I take with the B pawn, I'm isolating my A pawn. I don't know how you determine what's technically better. We'll see in the post-game analysis, but my intuition is that taking with the B pawn is better. I really don't want his rook to have an open file in the center of the board. But he doesn't even take. He doesn't take. So if I take here, obviously he's going to take with the queen, or he'll have double isolated pawns. I think he's opened himself up to a check here. He'll have to either block with the knight or move the king here. I'm not sure it matters what he does, because I think this is the best move regardless. Obviously, this bishop's not hanging. He has to move his king. Now he can't castle as long as my queen sits there. I have to either defend this bishop or take his bishop. I think I'll take his bishop here. He has an isolated pawn, which is not good for him. I'd love to keep my queen in this really active position, but I feel I might have to isolate his pawn here. So I should be up a pawn. I have a bishop where he has a knight. And the question is, how in this, I'm going to call it an endgame, do I get a pawn promoted before he does? And it's not super clear here. I think a good place to start might be getting the rooks into the game. This feels like a blunder. I'm going to take this rook. Let's look at what happened here. So I've traded a bishop for a rook. I'm going to try to push this pawn up the board. I think probably his best move is to move here. He doesn't want me to keep pushing it. Oh, castles might be the best move as well. I'm going to keep pushing it. I have to be a little careful of his knight. Knights are always tricky in endgames, but right now it can't jump to this square, this square, this square, or this square. But if he takes here, and I take here, it will be able to jump to this square, and it will be attacking my rook. That doesn't happen, though. I think I'll take this pawn. If he takes back, he's got 3 isolated pawns, which does not look good for him. It also prevents the whole situation I just talked about. I think I'll push this pawn here just because it looks cool. Fun little tactic. Hopefully it works. I think it works. Looking at his best moves, I'm thinking probably rook c1 is the best move I'm seeing. And if he plays rook c1, I'm thinking rook c3, just so that my rook isn't hanging anymore without letting go of this pawn. Oh, I think I can just go here now. Pinning his knight to his other rook. I think this is GG's, unless I'm missing something. Let's see what he does. Okay. Well, free knight. And at this point, I just want to simplify the game as quickly as possible, so I'll force him to trade rooks. His king's going to come. Oh, why can't I pre-move here? Not totally sure what's going on there, but it's going to be a little tricky to checkmate with just one rook, just because of how many pawns are on the board. So let's just clean up some pawns. Nice and simple. Obviously, if he takes, I can take. What? I got to figure out why it's not letting me pre-move. be a little bit careful of stalemate. We don't want a repeat of the last video here. So we'll just keep a close eye out for that. As long as he can move a pawn, though, we are not going to stalemate. I'm not sure it matters so much what I do here. Okay, pawn. There was some stalemate ideas he had there, but at any rate, I'll promote to a rook just because it seems easier to not accidentally stalemate somehow. And then we'll just go ahead and check him until we're in a checkmate situation. He has h3 to run away to. There's no stalemate. Okay, we'll force him to move up to h2. Grab that pawn. And then we'll just go for a nice ladder checkmate. And that is GG's. So let's go ahead and see what the computer thinks about how I did here. Chess is an art which expresses the science of logic. Interesting. Wonder what the difference between logic and reasoning is. 83% accuracy, 75% by my opponent. I'm pretty happy with this. All things considered, I'm very happy with 25 best moves and one great move. Let's see what our 3 misses were. So d4, I'll have to do a video on how to play against d4 here, both for you guys to learn and for me to learn, because I'm not sure the impromptu quote-unquote King's Indian is the best way of handling it, but yeah, this was a little sketchy. I don't know what his idea was here with pushing this pawn this far forward. It seems a little too aggressive to me. It's interesting they say this is a good move. When looking back at the game review, I didn't have any good moves. I just had best moves and misses. It liked b5 best. Sometimes the computer is beyond my understanding sometimes. Oh, that's a tough miss. Queen d5 check. Pick up the knight. That's a pattern that shows up a lot. I really shouldn't have missed that. Even still, I missed it again. Not only did I miss it, but I closed it off. Immediately pushing the queen out here seems... This was one point in time in which I wasn't sure what the best move would be. I thought it might be this. But just forcing his queen out of the center does make quite a lot of sense. I'm surprised this isn't an accuracy. I guess the idea being still that it's more important to force his queen out of the center than to force his bishop out of the center. It's calling this an inaccuracy. I'm going to say at this skill level, that's not really a significant difference. Okay, we saw that move. That was great. Getting the rook into the game was the right idea. Bishop for a rook was not a good trade. Just trying to get to a promotion here was a good idea. I'm a little embarrassed to say sometimes my brain is just very strange. And I really didn't see that knight was hanging. What do you guys do when you're under time pressure? How do you train to not miss things? You know what I mean? Yeah. Not really sure there's a whole lot more to see here. It's just the slow bleed to a checkmate. So, thank you everyone for viewing, and I hope you have a wonderful day.